Hey, DeRacers. So today we're going to be doing another community profile, and today we're going to be bringing on Scorpion. You may have seen him around on Discord. I think he's on the Average Jockeys. He's often in DERC Army, but Scorpion is the first and only professional video gamer that I've ever personally got a chance to meet. So we're excited to have him on the show to talk to him about his background story, his experiences with Derace, his visions of it. So without further ado, let's introduce you to Scorpion.
Good morning, guys, and to everyone at home, I want you guys to know this is not a vampire's 20th attempt at this intro with his COVID today, and we've been here for an hour and a half already, and no, I'm just joking. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing well.
Doing better today than yesterday. Well, Scorpion, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah,
So
no
one of the
worries.
things that very interested to talking to you about, because back in the day I played Clash of Clans. I definitely didn't get as good at the game as you did. So can you tell us a little bit about your background story? Like, who is Scorpion?
All right, so my background story was back in the early days, I used to play a lot of different type of games, and I don't want to pull my own chain here, but I found a lot of games far too easy. And I used to get bored after a month or 2 months of playing them. And one particular day, I was on the golf course, and a mate of mine said, I'm playing this new mobile game, it's Clash of Clans. And he showed it to me, and I wasn't sort of really that interested that particular day. But I can't remember if it was either Christmas Day or New Year's Day, about 10 years ago. I was at my wife's parents' place and I picked up the game and I downloaded it. And it was always a game that I could never master. It was a game that I was good at, but it was so strategic that I could never master it. And there's so many different little things what can happen during your attack which could go wrong, so you will fail. So my story with that was I started to build a YouTube channel because I couldn't find the content that I was looking for. And once my channel started to grow, it also gave me opportunities to join major clans. And I was able to join one of the biggest clans and probably the most famous clans at the time, and that was One Hive. And I actually became a leader in that clan.
Wow.
So you were managing a couple of hundred players, because a clan, how a clan system works is you would have 50 people in a clan, but there'd be multiple clans underneath that particular clan banner.
Wow.
And over the years, I obviously became a leader, and then esports came into the realm. And this was an interesting time because there was so much excitement in the game because there wasn't really a huge competitive scene. And opportunities came up to obviously go over to Europe. That was, I would say, that was a fun experience, but also a not a fun experience because when you live in Australia and to get to Europe is a 34 to 36-hour trip, it can play havoc on your body, especially with jet lag, the time difference, and also the good food, because you want to try all the German sausages, all the different types of German food, or if you're in Poland, you want to try all the pierogi and all the creamy foods, and this will play havoc with your stomach. And there was one particular morning I wasn't feeling well, and I was having a good spew session there for a good 30 or 40 minutes, and then I went downstairs to have a cigarette. And this was when I realized that I was too old for esports. I was a 36-year-old at the time, and it was -4 or -5 degrees. It was snowing. The wind was whipping straight between the buildings. So my eyes was absolutely pouring, and there were people scraping snow off the windscreen. There was ice, and that was the moment where I thought, no, I'm far too old to be doing this. But on the side note of that, to be able to do what I was doing at that age, well past my peak, I'm quite proud of, because esports is more for some a person in the 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to do it at 35, 36. So I did have some amazing experiences, but
When you traveled overseas and obviously spent a large amount of time in airports and on planes, how many days would you be over, say, in Europe for one of these events?
okay, so if I arrived in Europe at say about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll be back at the hotel at 4 o'clock. The next day would be a full day of media. Then you'd have day one a competition, day two a competition, day three a competition. Then you're on a plane home the next day.
Wow.
So,
Oh,
but
and under
during
a
the
week.
competition days, you'll be non-stop from start to finish. And at the end of the competition, you'll go out for dinner. So you had no sort of rest time. And then you're juggling things like jet lag, the time difference. When I was attacking live, it would be about 6 p.m. there, but it'll be 2 a.m. Australian time. So you're trying not to go to sleep. And
Wow.
Man. So how many years has it been since you retired?
it has been 2.5 years now.
Okay. So then when you wrapped up that, what did you do next?
From there, I actually, for the first 6 months, I played a range of different games. Again, games that I didn't really enjoy. I think I played COD Mobile for a little while, Brawl Stars for a little bit, some more COD, and sort of nothing sort of really hit that sweet spot. Again, you're sort of wanting that next challenge. And from there, this was actually when I actually got into crypto.
Ah.
When I started to actually mine crypto, there was a story on the TV how to earn money with your GPU mining Ethereum. And this is the rabbit hole I went down with because at the time Ethereum was roughly $750. So this
Okay.
was still back before the first bull run and the second bull run.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, you weren't earning too much money because, I mean, but you were earning quite a bit of Ethereum, which led to me buying a second GPU, third GPU, fourth GPU, fifth GPU, sixth GPU, and you were actually making a lot of Ethereum, even though it wasn't worth that much in USD.
Huh.
And it wasn't until we pushed up to May in 2021 where the gas prices were extremely high
Mm-hmm.
and each of these GPUs were making about $100 a day. And I started to cash out on that. I mean, it was pretty good money back then.
Yeah.
And that sort of led me down the whole rabbit hole of getting involved in crypto scene, and that sort of started to take up a lot of my time.
So then you were mining with a half dozen rigs at that point or more, or
I stopped at 6 GPUs. I
okay.
didn't want to sort of invest in more rigs. And being a gamer, you always had the latest equipment because you're
Mhm.
wanting the best FPS. So
I've always been curious about the electricity cost in terms of mining. Was it something that you had to monitor pretty regularly, or were you clearing that cost no problem?
at the peak of mining, you were clearing that cost no dramas whatsoever. But we have a fairly high cost of electricity here in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
I think recently my power went up to 0.22, and I believe in the US you're at 0.1 kilowatt per hour.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And these days to mine, it is definitely not profitable,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
after the merge.
So then what transitioned you from going from Ethereum and then moving into the NFT space?
Well, originally, so once the Ethereum price dropped from $4,000 down to $1,700 in July, that's when I started to do a lot of research when it came to all different types of crypto,
Hmm.
especially the gaming scene. Because obviously my background has been gaming, and that's where I came across projects like UFO Gaming, Gala, Sandbox,
Hmm.
Axie, Illuvium. These are
Mhm.
all projects that I did quite a lot of research into. And at the time, I can't actually remember who used this term. The price was in the dumpster or in the trash. I think it might have been Becca, because I was watching a lot of videos when it came to cryptos back then.
Mm-hmm.
And they were some of the first initial cryptos that I got into. And obviously, they did incredibly well during the bull market. I think UFO might have gone up about 1,000%. So I was pretty lucky with some of the first initial cryptos that I got into. When it came to the NFT scene, I didn't want to actually get involved with the NFTs. I thought, no, I'm taking the risk with tokens. Why do I want to actually buy an NFT? But then I actually stumbled across Derace and their NFTs. And this was actually quite a fun experience because the initial launch of the Derace NFTs were for, if I remember correctly, it was the Binance sale to start off with, and they were going super cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember people flipping them for about $400 or $500. And I didn't actually buy an NFT then. It was the future sales where you had the 85 DERC sale, which you could buy and then also flip for quite a crazy profit. And then there was a post what Alex Becker made, which made the price absolutely skyrocket from, I think it was 0.5 ETH up to 1.6 ETH, and he still had a couple of sales on Binance and also another DERC sale, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And you could buy tickets on Binance and also have horses on OpenSea, and you would sell the horses on OpenSea, which meant that you would get a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 because you could buy the tickets on Binance and then transfer them over to mint them over to OpenSea, and then you could sell them for a profit and then send the money back over to Binance again and then buy more tickets. So that was a
So
very, very fun time in terms of managing.
so let me ask this: if obviously you got into Derace through kind of just looking to flip stuff, right? It sounds like, but what actually like drew you into using Derace more on the, I guess, the horse racing side, like staying with the game and with using the tokens, not just trying to constantly flip? Or do you still look at it as a you're just looking to flip pieces, and that's how you see the game for yourself?
When it comes to actually getting involved and playing the game, I felt that like I had missed the opportunity with Zrun, where Zrun initially it took off and it absolutely boomed. I felt like I was too late to that party. So I saw Derace as the opportunity to get in early, to buy NFTs, hold on to some NFTs, and also flip NFTs, along with getting involved in the token from an early price and actually playing the game, having an investment in the game, keeping that investment, and seeing where that goes. Obviously, the bull market came to an end, and obviously, most projects, I would say just about all projects went down 90%.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like I'd missed the opportunity with Zrun. This is an opportunity here not only to do a wide range of things, buy NFTs, sell NFTs, hold on to NFTs, and also play the game.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm guessing you got in early on buying up OPs then as well?
I originally bought, no, I bought the OP. It was a little bit later in the piece, but I'd talked to Brad previously, and he was telling me I should buy an OP. I should buy an OP. It was like $400, and I'm like, no, I don't want to buy an OP. And I originally bought, I think it was like 0.22, but I then sold the OP later on. I think it was just after the whitelist. So I'd won a spot on the whitelist, and then I sold the OP afterwards. And I picked up an alpha in the whitelist. I think the alpha was 1 ETH, and I sold the alpha for 4.9 ETH.
Wow.
Dang.
Wow. Good for
They
you.
were the days.
Good for you.
Good for you.
I think I was the opposite. I may have bought the alpha from you at 4.9. So no, I got on the other side of that. But the reason I asked is I was really drawn into D-Race because of the hippodrome ownership concept.
Hmm.
And I mean, here locally where I live, we have a track that's 10 minutes away. I'm used to being around horse racing, but seeing it in a digital form and then thinking about the management side of it is what really got me excited. So early on, I was into the idea of collecting these OPs over time. And then since then, I've kind of they've lost some of their luster, but it's still one of those things that I'm excited to see where they take that and what it might mean. But yeah, anyway, very fascinating to see what drew people into the space and how they're continuing to play in the space.
A question that I have that is going to be a twofold. So going briefly to the Clash of Clans, I remember playing this game, and I remember there needing to be like gems that you actually buy things with in the game. I don't know if it was a cooldown or speeding up ownership of things, but did you play that game completely for free, or did you buy in to accelerate your career?
I wish I had played it for free, but no, I would call it a bit of a money pit. Yes, you buy gems, and that speeds up the building time.
Okay.
So obviously with town halls, the further you go up the levels, the more building time is required to complete a building, and you can speed it up by either using, depending on the building costs, it could be 500 gems, it could be 1,000 gems, and you can buy packs of 10,000 gems for, I think it was $159 back in the day. That's Australian dollars. I think it's like $99 for the Americans. It's actually extremely high for Europeans for some reason, because I checked the price when I was over in Europe a couple of times. And yeah, so it is basically you can play for free, but you can also speed up your progress by using gems. But if you were to start from scratch now to get to max Town Hall 15, you'll be putting in 3 or 4 years
Oh
to
my.
get to maxed
Wow.
if you played for free.
Okay. So then I wanted to take this kind of concept and then switch it with testnet access in the new release that's coming from Derace. We're going to have missions with wearables, sugars, and these other economic models that are being built into the game. Have you had a chance to review that much? And I'm curious if you have any opinions on that direction of missions. Do you think that's going to be good for the economy here? Is it going to inspire more players to play? What's your general take?
So my limited experience with the testnet, I did try out a few of the different options. I think with the leveling system and also the mission system, it is going to get more people actually completing the challenges, especially getting onto different surfaces, because once you find your ideal distance for your horse, you stay on that distance and you do not sort of move off it if that's the profitable distance.
Yep.
So I think that is going to get sort of more players into other distances, and it's probably going to bring more players into the game, especially when it comes to, I guess you could say, stationary horses, which are sort of on the fringes, what are not really sort of taking part, or horses what only race on the Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
DERC Mondays, to actually get them to sort of compete more during the week.
Do you find that the concept of kind of buying your way in through, grabbing sugar or earning sugar through racing, and then converting that into chests and keys and everything that they're trying to do to gamify that side of things, do you see that as appealing to you, or do you feel like you're going to stay out of that side and focus more on breeding and racing, just kind of a regular horse without any wearables? Or where do you kind of fall on that side of the game?
I like progression. So if you are earning something for taking part in something and you're getting something as a reward, that is like what I like to see and what I'll be focusing on, because One, you're racing, so you're taking part. You're earning the Cheston keys, which you can either convert to sugar, or you can potentially sell those NFTs. I'm not going to be focusing too much on the breeding side of things, because I think it's sort of a tricky period at the moment with love potion costs and then selling the NFT, where I would rather buy the Gen 1, which is unraced, and then brace it. If it turns out to be bad, I can then sell it for the floor again.
Yeah.
So I do like the direction where they are going with the missions to earn sugar, to then earn chests and that side of things.
All right, so let me ask you this: what keeps you racing? Like, if you're obviously you are grabbing these Gen 1s and looking to see if they're good, but right now, and you had a great question, by the way, that got picked up at the AMA that happened this morning here, our local time, where they were asking, or you had asked something with regard to using USD instead of DERC as the entry fee cost, and it was more driving at this idea that if we see fluctuations in DERC going up or down in this case, should we use a conversion to USDC as more of a stable model? If you're picking up Gen 1s and racing them to try to find out if they're profitable, and you may or may not care too much about the wearables, and obviously the progression is great, but the profitability isn't there, what keeps you racing?
Okay, so first the question was, do you have plans or have thoughts about changing the minimum entry from DERC value to USD value? The $1 minimum entry for races on completion of entry, that $1 automatically adjusted to DERC value, aka $1. Let's say it's a 10-cent DERC value equals a 10 DERC entry. I raise this question if the token price continues to fall in the bear market. Now, this kind of does have two sides of the story. One, it can work against you if you're testing horses, because, I mean, if you're paying $1 per race and you need hundreds of races and 20 or 30 on each track, for instance. But also on the flip side of that, if you do discover that you have a good horse or a profitable horse, and the prices of DERC continues to fall, whether it's down to 10 cents, 5 cents, 1 cent, depending on how long the bear market goes for, once you do actually have a good horse, how are you going to make the ROI? So the other side of that is you could still have the one DERC Mondays where you can test horses, maybe with no cooldown. So you can jump from one race to the next race, the next race, the next race, or make the races a lot quicker. But during the rest of the time, have a minimum entry of, say, $1. So it doesn't matter what the price of the DERC is at the time, we can still actually potentially make some money. Because for this bear market, we don't know how long it's going to go for, maybe another 6 months, another year. And with the price of DERC, who knows what can happen. The price could actually go up, back up to $1, and then you're in a situation where, all right, $1 entry equals 1 DERC, and that sort of is sort of the minimum entry we were talking about there. Because if I think back to when the first game came out in January, people had no problems entering an 8 DERC race, and the token price was $6.
Yeah. My first prize, I think I won over $57 USD. Very first race I went out and I won it. It was so exciting. And I was thinking, I'm going to make $50 a day every time I land this thing. It was great.
I think there was a race that I earned. It was an 8 entry. I think I won 56 DERC or something like that from the race. And yeah, it was really nice money back then.
It just took 2 contracts to get yourself in the race, and then sometimes it loaded. I remember just constantly refreshing and seeing everything just being blitzed in. Oh, I was going to say, like, so that with the $1 minimum, that's definitely one thing. But what is the visual, or what is the elements of the game that excite you to want to come and compete? Yeah, like when we talked to Yoder, he talked a lot about his desire or his history with horse racing, and then he also had like a vision of how he was trying to bring in elements to it. For you, do you have anything like that, or is it predominantly focused on the betting elements that go into submitting into the races?
Like I did actually submit another question regarding the betting side of things. What happens or what's going to be introduced to replace betting if betting regulations do not allow gambling for this particular type of game? Because all the different types of games are wanting gambling involved. Now, let's say if that's all ruled out, what are they going to introduce to replace that? And something that I would like is if I was a 3D model and I could actually go into the actual stadium itself and be able to look around. Because if you had a 3D viewer and you were able to not only hop into a jockey and be able to see through the eyes of a jockey and be able to look around at the racetrack while actually being in the race, you're creating these elements which are completely different to all the other games. Take the Z runs, the photo finishes, the peg axes. None of these games have that option where you can actually be a 3D person, go into the stadium, look around, take a seat, be able to, let's say, enter races, to be able to enter tournaments, all these different types of things within the actual game, and you're turning it into like a metaverse within itself. Another thing that I am looking forward to is tournaments, and exactly how that's shaped. And I probably have a million questions regarding those, whether it's going to be solely on the Hyperdrome owners themselves, or if Derace are going to actually fund some of these tournaments. And so that kind of what keeps me still excited, because I kind of get jealous when it comes to other games and their $10,000 a day tournaments, and I'd love to see that involved in D-Race, because that's going to create so many opportunities when it comes to buying good horses, selling good horses, trying to breed good horses, and everything what can come from that. And that is certainly, especially from a, let's say, YouTube content creation point of view, you guys, let's say me, if I want to get involved, to be able to promote, to advertise, to sort of get a wider audience to actually be able to see what's happening and to get more people involved.
So right now, obviously, we're talking about things that can be realized in the near future, or we hope to see in the future, right? But it is kind of a catch-22, right? We need there to be hype that's created now to draw people in, so that we have the bodies, the horses, etc., that can actually run these tournaments and events and bring money into the space. But then on the flip side, we actually need there to be, I guess, a hype-driven elements that need to be developed now before we can draw those people in. So how do you see a way for D-Race to really drive some hype now that isn't just going to fall flat?
That's a good question.
Good question. I think one thing I'm actually a little bit concerned with is the dev time to create, because one of the things that I was led to believe was with the inclusion of V2, the dev build time would be so much faster because you're not creating the contracts with Polygon. And for this particular update, yes, there's a lot of different things and elements being introduced. The update time has been, 3 to 4 months. Now, I'm hoping once this particular update is out, the next features are going to be a lot quicker, especially when it comes to tournaments. But also in the next update, I think there's going to be hyperdromes also, which also are going to create, there's probably going to be quite a lot of things on the back end there as well. What What was the question again?
Well, so driving hype, like you're absolutely right. Being able to develop
Yep. I got
features
you.
as fast as possible is really important. And it sounds like we're going to get 2 to 3 waves of these things, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully they're not 4 months apart on each one. But if they are, 6 to 8 weeks apart from each other, as we get into the next calendar year, are we doing anything to drive hype now? They're doing all this stuff in October, but it's kind of like the new version of the game isn't even going to be out for another week, and then it's the next wave after that, the next wave after that. Like, what do we do to keep people coming as well as keep people excited about what's on the horizon?
Yeah, I think a lot comes down to the dev build time. If they're able to speed that up a little bit, okay, I understand that, yes, it's only a small dev team behind it, but in terms of hype, there has to be fillers within that hype. Yes, DERC Army's doing some fillers with the tournaments. You guys are doing some filler tournaments. But there also needs to be some effort on DeRace's part as well, and that's creating events, whether that is either a sponsored event or whether it's events from themselves, because you will still want to keep the community engaged in those in-between periods. Like if it's a 2 or 3 month time gap between those major updates, you got to keep the community involved. You got to keep the community wanting to enter races. You want to keep the community excited, but also keep them sort of engaged. And a great way to do that is those 24-hour events. You can see a huge increase in the numbers what are entering races in those events. I think the last event was for the Apostles, the 8, the Halloween event.
Yeah.
You were hardly able to get into a race. They were filling up that quickly.
Yep. So then, Vamp, I don't want to step on your toes if you've got more questions, but kind of as a last question regarding this, if you've got friends and other people that might be on the edge wanting to get involved with D-Race, but they're not necessarily, or maybe you're not quite there saying, yeah, I'm going to really push this and get everyone I know involved. What's the one feature in the future, or a couple features if you have them, that you're like, I need that, and then the minute that's there, I'm going to be telling everybody about this?
When it comes to let's open end that question to, let's say, more NFT projects as a whole. Yes, now is the time to be buying into projects. 2, I don't feel like there is many projects that I would say up to par in terms of investing in. One of those projects I would say is up to standard would be, say, Illuvium. When it comes to Derace, I still think Derace has a lot to build on and improve. Would I ask my friends or recommend Derace to my friends? Probably not, because there's still a lot to be done. There's still, obviously, at this time of the market is the best time to build and grow. If there's one particular feature that is probably going to make or break, I would say the tournaments is probably the most exciting possibility in how that is put out. I'm just sort of choosing my words wisely here. I would say in terms of tournaments, that's probably the most exciting feature people are looking forward to be able to take part against all the best horses in one particular race where there's actually potential for real possible earnings. Because at the moment we're sort of playing the game, we're testing the game out, we're sort of making a couple of dollars on the side, where tournaments is the possibility to actually see some real solid gains.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Or also losses, depending on how bad your horse is, depending if it's an entry fee. But that is probably one of the most exciting features that I am looking forward to, and I really hope that this particular feature is absolutely nailed. Because that is going to be able to grow in so many different ways from that.
I agree. I think the tournaments and the invite only racing, being able to have that be a core element going forward is going to allow the community to grow out of that. The projects that DERC Army is doing, the projects we're doing, and events we're doing. If you can do invite only, if you can do tournaments, I mean, we're not talking about pennies anymore, right? We're talking about really big races being a potential, because I think there is people that are excited to drop some money
and most importantly, it's going to create excitement with the current user base, because if I ask you guys a question, do you guys have a reason to bring up the viewer and to watch a race currently?
I mean, I got to admit, we now have that bot that's starting to work really stably, and I watch races more often now, because if I'm manually doing it, I might just throw it into a race while I'm still working. But when I have a bot running, it allows me to keep working, and then when I get a breather, I can turn over and scan through. And some of these times, I'll either repeat some of these races and watch them that look exciting. I have a projector in my house that occasionally I'll grab some beers and a buddy and we'll sit down. But where I want to see is I want to park myself at a hippodrome, not have to open up those viewers and have race after race, just like I would see at a real track, where I could just sit back hands free and just enjoy that hippodrome.
Yeah, I think for myself, I only watch it because I'm training a new horse, like getting a feel for, does it get out of the gate early? Does it run in the mid nicely? And does it have any sort of closing power? And watching that, sometimes you get a pretty good feel for the horse early on. Now, obviously, with RNG and the way that the system runs, you're going to have some tracks that it just runs insanely fast or insanely slow. But for the most part, that's the only time I'm really looking at my horse. Like if I've got one of my better horses just running regularly, like I'm not really opening up the viewer all that often.
Yeah, so that leads into the point where a tournament gives people a reason to click and view the race, which then can be turned into videos, it could be turned into advertising, it could be promotion, it could be tipping comps, where you get the regular spectator actually watching the race, which may not actually be involved in the actual race or have horses, which then leads to them actually buying their first horse and gives mainly people a reason to watch the race.
Yeah.
Or
every now and then, when you open up a race and you see like 8 horses out of the 12 that are just completely battle tested champs, those are the races I enjoy watching the most, because it's like this is going to be a good one. And so I'm excited to see tournaments as well, for the sake of seeing hopefully the same set of horses competing over and over, so you could really see the progression rather than having everything being randomized every single time, it seems.
Another side option which could be possibly introduced is, even though it could be considered copying, Photo Finish have a little player up in the right-hand corner which has the races going from one race to the next race to the next race, where it's always open and you can click on it and it will actually bring it into a full screen. But if you don't want to click on it, you can still watch the particular races happening, but you're still entering other races. So that is a feature which could be possibly introduced in the future, which does allow the viewer to watch races without actually clicking on anything.
Yeah, I like that. That's actually pretty good, because I can imagine too, if you were in a tournament or if you were in any sort of, let's say it's a multiple invite only races that were back to back, you could jump from one to the next as well. And yeah, you're absolutely going to keep my attention if I can jump over to another race and recognize a horse, and then jump over to a different one and see if I recognize a horse, that's going to keep me much more interested.
Right on. Well, Scorpion, I think we're going to be running low on time. Real quick, just to confirm, you're on Average Jockeys, right?
That's correct.
All right. Are you guys recruiting any players?
T is always trying to recruit players, so I'll give a shout out to T. If you guys want to join Average Jockeys or whatnot, hit him up, and I'm sure he'll get you involved somehow or some way. So big
Fantastic.
shout out to T. I mean, you can pay me later for that.
We'll make sure to drop your guys' Discord links too if you'd like, because we always like to see other teams grow and get bigger. So you guys have a great team out there. So anything we could do to help support your growth. But
Thank you.
of course, man. Well, thank you for joining us today. And it's nice to always get to know more and more of the people that we play against every single day. So it's a lot of Australians out there.
Thank you for having me, and I'm surprised we talked for 40 minutes. And yes, and I felt like I've only sort of told half my story, so there's still plenty to tell. So if anyone wants to ask questions, hit me up below, and I'll check out the questions and maybe answer a few of them.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right, Scorpion. Thank you again, and everybody else. We'll see you out on the tracks.